There are some major differences when coding injuries and poisonings in ICD-10 compared to ICD-9, and this lecture provides an overview of just certain topics in ICD-10. As you view this list of injury classification, you will notice one of the differences in ICD-10 compared to ICD-9 is that injuries are listed by anatomical site and not by the type of injury. Although there are many types of injuries that are coded here, we are going to focus on coding fractures, burns, and adverse effect and poisonings due to drugs and substances. A major difference in ICD-10 is the seventh character. Seventh characters are used with the injury code to indicate the phase of treatment and are required for most categories in this chapter. A is used for the initial encounter, which would include the ER visit, an orthopedic visit or another doctor visits, and the surgery. So anytime a new physician is evaluating that situation or the condition, then the A is used. Remember in ICD-9 when a V code was used for aftercare? Not in ICD-10. This is now designated by the initial condition with the seventh character of D. And examples of aftercares are cast changes, follow-up visits, and medication changes. S is used for sequela. And this may be a new concept to some of you. A sequela is the condition or complication caused by the injury, such as scarring due to a burn. When we code fractures in ICD-10, the same definitions hold true for the types of fractures such as open, closed, and pathological. There are some examples of closed fractures such as simple, impacted, and open fractures which are sometimes referred to as compound. And the fracture is considered closed unless otherwise documented by the physician. A new concept is displaced versus non-displaced fractures. In a displaced fracture, not only is the bone broken, but it is also misaligned due to the fracture. So it's important to remember that the fracture is considered displaced unless otherwise documented. Our pathological fractures are caused by disease rather than trauma, and they're found in the alphabetical index under fracture, pathological. Compression fractures may be due to trauma or disease, so make sure you read the documentation very carefully. In fractures, there are different seventh characters based on the actual broken bone, so you must read your codebook carefully. Some of the additional characters specify open or closed, routine healing, malunion or non-union, and the type of fracture with the Gestio classification. And don't worry, most physicians don't document to this Gestio classification either. But it is important to remember the terms for malunion and non-union. Malunion means the fracture is healed but not aligned properly, and non-union means the fracture hasn't healed at all. So let's try coding. Here's an example we're going to code, the fracture of the distal phalanx right index finger initial encounter. We look in our alphabetical index under the main term, fracture, traumatic, and then finger, and here's an excerpt from the alphabetical index. You will see that there's so much more specificity in ICD-10, and so under finger we have index, or little, which we know it's an index finger, and then it gives us the phalanx, and we have distal. Notice then that the non-essential modifier is displaced. So our code that we're going to look in the tabular index is S62.63. Note the dash and the check mark indicate that we need additional digits. So going to the tabular listing, here's what we find. Under our code S62.63, we're looking for the sixth digit now, which is more specificity based on which finger, which is the right finger, so we have S62.630, and we need the seventh character, so we go back up to the category, and we see that we have A is for the initial encounter. And look at our different choices we have for this bone. So our correct code for this fracture is S62.630A. Also remember that if you do not have a sixth digit in your injury code, that you will need to use a placeholder so you can use the seventh digit. And here's an example. So S82.62, we need an X for the sixth character and then add the A. So you cannot add that seventh digit if there's only 5 characters without adding the placeholder. And just a real brief overview of burns. Seventh characters are also used in the burn codes. The same degrees and depths apply to ICD-10. And just remember to read very carefully in your code